Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. Happy Tuesday to all of you out there. How does it feel to have baseball back? Well, looks like it's only for the time being, but this is a 100% purely optimistic baseball podcast, so I will dive into those details later. But first off, let's recap the first weekend because, man, oh man, it was eventful. So Garrett Cole started off 2020 the only way that 2020 could have started, with a 5-inning complete game due to a rainout. Giancarlo Stanton flexed his muscles. Kershaw was scratched from a start, only to have Derek May fill in beautifully. And Kike Hernandez put the team on his back and had the best performance of the night, going 4 for 5 with the dinger. What a beautiful, beautiful opening night it was. Let's dive in to the surprises for the weekend. Is Eric Hosmer back? I mean, he had 2 bases loaded doubles and a homer for the Padres this weekend. And, you know, Manny Machado is putting forth some Manny Machado level performances, making them look like a serious threat in the NL West. Let's go on to, the Braves. The Braves, they could not touch Jacob deGrom at all. Granted, that is not a surprise. Jacob deGrom is easily one of the top 3 pitchers in the National League. But then, you know, they were able to etch out a win in extras the next day on Saturday and then just absolutely obliterate the Mets on Sunday night. You know, we had Marcell Ozuna looking like he's already worth the money with his top of the 9th, 3-2, 2-out, opposite field homer to tie to take it to the extras. And speaking of extras, like, how awesome is this new extra innings rule? I'm a huge advocate for the runner on second extra innings rule. I think it works great. I don't think we're going to see any more games that are just dragging on to the 19th, 20th inning. That's so unnecessary. So unnecessary to play 2 full games in one day just because some teams can't score. And now, you know, I mean, in the first night, we saw the runner on second get picked off. We saw a walk-off grand slam. Then we saw a team later on in the weekend score the run without even recording an official at-bat. We saw the Braves absolutely break the game open with situational baseball, and we saw a rookie get his first hit driving in a 2-run double. William Contreras, thank you so much. I do love you as a catcher. Now, we saw heavy hitters on the mound struggle with, Ohtani, Bumgarner, Giolito, Charlie Morton, Yu Darvish, John Paxton, only to be countered with great performances by Kyle Hendricks, Shane Bieber, Lance Lynn, Chris Paddock, Ross Stripling, Zach Wheeler, Dylan Bundy. That's right, Dylan Bundy had a game that was just amazing this weekend. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, Dylan Bundy is really putting together this kind of effort? This is insane. You have Dinelson Lamet. I know I butchered the name. Just bear with me with that. Mitch Keller, Garrett Richards, Tyler Chatwood, and all 3 Red starters had incredible games on the mound. We saw guys like, Ronald Acuna, who was swinging and missing at fastballs. Like he had just chugged a case of beer and spun around 30 times on a wiffle ball bat. While Matt Olson and Jake Cave, of all people, were popping grand salamis like they live in an Italian market. This season has started out incredibly strange. And that's an understatement. I mean, we got reports that Justin Verlander shut down for the season while, he said that he just needs to chill out for a bit and he's good. And yes, I know that you can't feed into the opening weekend standings, but let's take a look at what they look like. I mean, here's some teams that are tied for the division lead at the end of the first weekend. We got the Rockies. We got the Marlins. We got the Detroit Tigers. Told you guys not to sleep on the Tigers. Who else? We have and even the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles took 2 of the 3 against the Red Sox. Who would have ever thought that before the season started? Now, I know that the Red Sox starting rotation is not good, and their bullpen's probably even worse. They go through that cycle. They win a World Series, they have an off year, and then they just completely miss the playoffs because all their pitching's gone. I don't know what it is. Sports is weird like that. There's a culture, and history tends to repeat itself, and Boston's normally the same way. They win a World Series, they make like a wild card appearance the next season, and then it's just downhill the next, and then they start, busting open their checkbooks and start paying everybody else. And, they're back in it. I know the Red Sox cannot be comfortable with the way they performed this weekend, dropping the opening series to the, quote, worst team in baseball. That's a little weird. But I'm sure they'll bounce back. You have Daniel Bard pitch for the first time in the big since 2013. So if you guys are not hyped about the way that the season could play out, I don't know how to convince you, because all of this happened and we're only 3 or 4 games in, depending on the teams. But sad news coming out of the MLB. We are 100% Optimism Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network, but we did get word today that the Miami Marlins have had a ton of COVID-19 positive tests. They have about 14 players and staff members at least reported by the USA Today that, they have tested positive. They canceled their flight home from Philadelphia after only playing 3 games. They played an opening series against the Braves before they went out to Philadelphia. So who knows who they infected on the Braves, only to have them go and play the Mets, to probably affect the Mets. I think I speak for all of baseball when I say this: Miami.
Boo! You stink!
I mean, this is exactly why that the Toronto Bluejays cannot play this season up in Canada. We just got word a couple days ago on where they actually will play, but see, we don't even know if the season will be played at all. They're pushing back games. 2 games have been postponed that were scheduled for Monday. It is the Marlins home game against the Baltimore Orioles, and it's the Yankees game versus the Phillies. This could lead to a whole slew of problems for the majors. Because you're looking at it and you're saying, we might not play baseball, we might not do this, but we could. We could actually salvage this season, but at what cost? The players who just have kids. I mean, there's a ton of opt-outs on the season due to family members. So you could have a ton of the faces of the league just be like, is this really worth it? And back out. Like, Mike Trout's been on the fence for weeks about if he's going to show up and play this season, and now, we don't know. He could back out. He could just be like, hey, with these positive outbreaks, I don't think that we're doing enough to, keep us safe. I have a kid on the way that's supposed to be due in a few days. Hey, Manfred, I'm out. And we just got to live with that. So the best player in the game is just not playing anymore. So that's going to be something that we got to overcome. Up until this point of the past 2 weeks, there was only 9 players who tested positive throughout all of baseball, and just 29 players and staff, that's 0.1% of baseball, have tested positive since baseball restarted. But 29 is still not that great. We can do better. As baseball, they should do better. And baseball is going to be the litmus test for other sports. Like, if baseball can't travel and shows that traveling is going to cause a bunch of problems, like, what's the NFL going to do? What's the NCAA going to do? The NCAA can't put kids in bubbles. They can't do it at all. Because if you try and put, like, you can't put students in bubbles because, they need classes, they need tutoring, they are students. It goes students before athletes in the name. It's not actually how it works in college. But, it looks like if baseball can't figure it out and can't get something to work, then it looks like there's going to be no college athletics this year. There's probably not going to be the NFL, and the only thing that we're going to get is the NBA, because the NBA figured out, like, hey, if we just station these guys in one little area and test them twice a day and don't let them leave, so they're only around the healthiest people, hey, this is going to work. Nobody in, nobody out. This is how we do things. And if you do go out, you have to have a 10-day quarantine at least. Shout out Lou Williams. But that's just kind of how the repercussions of this are going to go. Now, who would have ever thought that the pretty much epicenter of the coronavirus in America, which is Florida, big shocker, is going to pretty much shut baseball down, but keep basketball alive? How weird is that? You would have thought that basketball would have been in somewhere like Vegas or something like that, where they have all the courts and they have the big hotels, but, they're making it work in Orlando. Why can't they make it work anywhere else? It's pretty much the entire bubble thing. So why didn't baseball come up with a bubble? I mean, you have spring training complexes all over Florida, and you have spring training complexes all over Arizona. Why didn't you do that? Why did baseball not go that route? It's so strange, because you could put the West in Arizona. Just put the West. You could do the West and the Central all in just Arizona with their spring training fields. Maybe, stake out a college field. You have Nevada, Reno. You have UNLV. You can just take their, or wait, no, that's Arizona, my bad. So you have Arizona State and you have Arizona. Boom, right there. There's 2 more fields that you could take advantage of. You just play one, just do like they do in the NBA. Just take a bunch of teams, play early in the morning, grab the groundskeepers, do the field over, make it prepped, make it nice, just like you're working a doubleheader in the MLB. I don't get it. Why did it have to be this way? We have the MLB is going to be on high alert for the rest of the year. 3 players. And another thing that didn't get questioned is 3 players tested positive for coronavirus on Sunday for the Miami Marlins, and they were and the MLB was like, whatever, go take the field anyways. Are you kidding? Why are they allowing the team to take the field? You postpone the game immediately. Like, I fully don't understand. Oh my God. And then the Miami Marlins, it says right here, the manager Don Mattingly said the team never considered not playing, but it is now clear that it was a mistake. Yeah, no kidding, pal. You have 3 players testing positive for a highly infectious virus, and then in hindsight, you're like, oh, that's probably a bad idea. Yeah, no kidding. We'll see how much of this how bad this gets, because the Philadelphia Phillies players, they still need to get tested, and we'll see, how many positive tests come back. Joe Girardi said to the USA Today, he said, we sent a text out to all our players to make sure that they knew what was going on. We're constantly reminding the guys, you have to be safe. You can't really have a lot of contact with other people because you put everybody in danger. Bryce Harper, when he found out, he wore a mask every time he went to the plate. Is that really that hard? It's baseball. Just you can wear a mask on the field. It's not that big of a deal. Anthony Rizzo made light of it by, giving out hand sanitizer at first base. I thought that was hilarious because, baseball does what baseball does and tries to make light of bad situations, which is why I love this game so much. But it's something that we really, got to take into account. And Don Mattingly goes on to say, where he says they can honestly refuse not to play, right? Everybody can opt out today. Again, I think we're getting down to getting down the road, but I think there are discussions. Mattingly, please stop talking. Just do what you need to do to make sure that not only you are protecting yourself and your team, but you're also protecting the state of the league. Like, there's more people than just baseball players that are riding on baseball happening. Like, people forget that there are workers, casual workers that work for, work for the teams that don't make a lot of money. There's the 40K earners, the 50K earners, the 60K earners who, they need their salaries to go on, and they want the games to be played. There are other livelihoods besides this. So, like, I think baseball is going to take about a week off. We're going to just try to enjoy baseball as much as you can, because 100% optimism here, but I wouldn't count your chickens before they hatch. All right, everybody, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back with the recent news of the Toronto Stadium situation. It looks like this is all wrapped up. I will be right back after this break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, everybody, so we just jumped into the weekend recap, and let's move on to the next story that seems to finally be resolved. That's right, people, the Bluejays have found a home. Well, kind of. So, as we've known and reported, the Bluejays won't play their home games in Toronto this year because, the Canada thinks it's not safe for the players to travel back and forth from the United States, which we have found out from, our last segment, the breaking news with the Marlins, was the right decision. So, the team's alternative sites for home games were the training facility in Dundon, Florida, which is definitely not happening, which is, as we've known, the coronavirus hotspot, as well as Solon Field in Buffalo. I never get that name right. I haven't really heard the name, so if I butchered it, don't get mad at me. Which is the home of the Toronto's AAA affiliate, and it seems like they got the nod. So it looks like the Blue Jays will play their home game August 11th against the Miami Marlins in Solon Field, however you say it. They tried to get to PNC Park, but PNC Park said no. And then I later suggested in our previous episode that maybe they could use Camden Yards. And right after I got done recording that episode, news broke that they were actually in negotiations with Camden Yards. So check out me. Shout out me for just looking into the future. But it doesn't really look like that is going to happen. The Blue Jays, they're still vying for an MLB ballpark. It looks like they're going to use Solon Field in Buffalo for the beginning series, but the players have expressed interest for playing in a major league level ballpark because it would require some configurations of the clubhouse, workout facility, and ballpark lights to bring the stadium up to par with an MLB ballpark. So basically what they're saying is like, hey, MLB, put some actual resources into the minor league stadiums, and maybe they'll get better attendance and actually make some money for you in the long run. Ever thought of that? The MLB is so strange because you look at it as the developmental league. So it's the minors, you have to play in the minors. Every player coming up has to play in the minors. And they just don't put any resources into it at all. It's insane to think about. Like, these guys are future stars or stars at the end of their roads, just trying to make, one last leap back into the MLB, showing that, they still have the skills. and they're not really putting any resources into it. You know, you look at the NBA G League, for example, and granted, it wasn't always like this, but in the past few years, they've put a lot of resources into it to now, you know, you have star players. You have really, really, really good competition down in the G League. So if you have a G League team in your city, it's worth it to go to games because you're actually getting some very good and competitive basketball. Baseball, it doesn't seem like they really care a lot about their minor league teams, which is sad to say because, I mean, that's the future of the league right there, and you're not really giving them any accommodations. Some other concerns that would need to be addressed is the bullpen location being in playable foul territory, as well as making sure that there's enough space for social distancing for the players and coaches. But the Blue Jays organization figures that this is an easier option than to continue awaiting government approval for sharing an MLB ballpark. So basically what they're saying is, guess that, you know, that's why no real major free agent goes to Tampa Bay or Oakland because, you know, the bullpen is still in play. And, you know, you could say there are other reasons. There are a lot of other reasons, but, you know, just a little joke there. And so what they're saying is the Jays, while, you know, naming a home, said they're still looking for other options. And Toronto seemed to turn this predicament into The Bachelor. Just handing out roses to ballparks. Like, oh, here, we would like to see if, you know, we would like to see you in the next round. Okay, would you accept this rose? So, and honestly, I think it's infinitely better than The Bachelor, to be honest, because this is the livelihood of the game. Granted, we don't even know if we're going to have a game, especially with the state of, you know, the coronavirus and everything in the league. It might get delayed. I mean, it's 2 weeks away before they actually play their first game in Buffalo against the Marlins. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I'm not really sure how that's going to go. Nobody's really sure how it's going to go. We're all taking this day by day. But if, you know, Rob Manfred and, you know, the league starts canceling more games, where are we going to go? We might not even see the game in Buffalo. The game could get, you know, the season could be canceled by then or postponed. I think we're just waiting to hear, like, oh, hey, better luck next year, which is what we thought going into it anyways. That would be such a bummer, such a tease to be like, oh, we're back. We're so back. Baseball's back. This is going to be great. And then we're only 72 hours in and the season gets canceled. Sick. But optimism here. You know, Toronto begins the season at Tampa Bay. We saw that. Great series. I had a lot of fun watching that series. Bo Bichette looked like the man. Vlad Guerrero Jr. had some mess ups at first base, but you know, there's a learning curve switching from the hot corner to first base. And then, you know, they just look like a potent offense in the making. I think that the Blue Jays, granted, they're not really going to do anything this season if it were to go on, but they're definitely a fun team to watch. They're definitely a team that's going to be, you know, at the bottom of the AL East trying to, you know, play heartbreaker to the teams that are vying for a playoff spot. They could definitely crush some hearts at the end of the season for, you know, teams surging for a playoff push. They're no easy out for sure. So we saw that, and then, you know, their first quote-unquote home game was supposed to be this weekend against the defending champion Washington Nationals, who kind of struggled this weekend against the Yankees. They absolutely dominated John Paxton on, what was it, Saturday. And then Sunday came around and they had a pretty good game through about the seventh inning, and then Patrick Corbin gave up a couple homers and an RBI single late in the ninth, and you know, they ended up losing 2 out of the 3. But it was a promising start for the Nationals, just showing that their offense was potent enough to take down such a great team like the Yankees. You know, it's not over for them. Granted, everybody knows it's not over because it was like, you know, they were, 20 games below 500, then they turned around and won the World Series, which was absolutely insane. But, you know, since it's such a short season, they showed that, we may have lost some big players, and that's all without Juan Soto also. Juan Soto went down with the coronavirus before the season, right before the season started, and they still were able to really compete with the Yankees. The Mets showed that, they might be more pretenders, but, we got the Nationals proved to us at least that they are a solid number 2. We'll see how this all goes. They will be playing the Toronto Blue Jays in Washington, but it will be considered a road game. I don't know how that works, but will the crowd noise? How will the crowd noise work? There's a lot of weird things that's going on in the league that's just this is so weird. I can't even wrap my head around how this season is going this whole year, but this season is insane. And then after their series against the Nationals, if they were to play that series, they're going to go to another home series, quote unquote, against the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Blue Jays really have to play 3 straight series against teams that were affected the most by the coronavirus. That's really unfortunate. So we definitely got to keep an eye on that. Basically, man, this is so weird. I'm just waiting right now for the the MLB season just to come out and be like, hey, wait till next year. Those are the words that I'm fearing, that I'm sure everyone else is fearing, but I feel like it's coming. Optimism is slowly fading away. I am being a total hypocrite here, but there's not much you could really say. There's no this morning everything just kind of stopped. We all just had to freeze, and we're just waiting to see what happens. All right, everybody, I will take another quick break. And I will be back with all of the injuries. It was a really injury-prone weekend. It shows, if this weekend showed us anything, it's that the importance of spring training, getting everybody loose, getting the arms loose, because there was a ton of injuries this weekend just in the first 72 hours. Of people just, their bodies just weren't ready for the rigor of the MLB season. So I will be back in just a moment to break all that down. Stick with me. I will be right back after this break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, everybody, and we are back. I would like to thank you for staying this long. We are just about to jump into the start of the week series, if they are actually played, to look forward to. But before we get to that, it was a very, very, very rough weekend for players. Like I said earlier, arms aren't fully stretched. Players aren't really ready to go, and we really saw it. We really saw it with the pitchers this weekend, and I was just going to talk about all the pitchers that went down, and how it's going to really affect their teams. So first off, we got the big news last night. Justin Verlander went down, and we don't know if he's going to be out for the season or not. Dusty Baker said, that he's shut down for a couple weeks, and we'll reevaluate him at that time. That's all I can really tell you. He said he felt fine. He was throwing the ball great, and it's just kind of a shock to all of us. That was an actual quote from Dusty Baker about the whole situation. That's a huge. Obviously, he was a Cy Young Award winner last year at 36, having one of the best seasons he's ever had. So yeah, it's a huge loss, but it's also a even bigger loss because they lost Garrett Cole also last year. They lost Cole to the Yankees. So you're going into this year without the top two Cy Young candidates from last year. I don't know. It's not looking good for the Houston Astros. Now, they did get Zach Greinke in a trade a year ago, so it looks like he will be taking the reins over as the number one if Verlander were to go down for the entire season. And Lance McCullers looks like he's going to be the number two option. He missed all of last year with Tommy John surgery, and those are going to be the top two starters for the Houston Astros. What that means is it's looking like it's going to be the A's series to lose. Like, if Zach Greinke and Lance McCullers, who sat out all last year, are going to be your top two hurlers on the mound this year, the A's are looking primed to take this division, and that's something that I would really keep an eye on. Rookie reliever Christian Javier looks like he made his debut on Saturday, and he's stretched out enough to start, but he's also pretty inexperienced. So you're adding a lot more prospects to the game. I don't know about that for Houston. And then there's top prospect Forrest Whitley, who's among the starters working out at the alternative training site. But, I looked up his numbers in AAA Round Rock last year, and he seemed to struggle. So there's major question marks on top of major question marks out there in Houston. We have to keep an eye on those, and they're going into a major series to start out this week. I will get to that later in the next segment, but they're going to need every single bit of their heavy hitters to come out and play, and it doesn't look like they're going to have them. So the inexperience could come back to bite them in the long run. And if the Angels were to turn it around, there's a world where the Houston Astros fall to the third team in the AL West. I doubt it'll happen, but there is a chance that it does happen. We've talked about the Miami Marlins. They scratched right-hander Jose Urena from his scheduled start on Sunday. But they unannounced reasons. They didn't say why they actually scratched him. We found out later why they scratched him, but at the moment they said just hours before the start against the Phillies, he was like, "Oh yeah, he's not playing." They also released information that they delayed their flight back to Miami from Philadelphia until this morning of Monday morning, which is odd because they had a game that night at 7:05 Eastern against the Orioles. Once again, we found out this morning why they all did that, and the game got postponed. But it was a little weird. I spoke about it earlier twice. I'm not going to speak about it again, but I mean, come on, Miami, what are you doing? With 93 big league starts, Urena, he's definitely the most experienced starter in the Miami's rotation, and the 23-year-old was the opening day starter the past two seasons, and actually was slotted third in the rotation this year. So the most experienced pitcher being your third option in the rotation, that's actually pretty good. So, Miami is definitely a team to keep your eye on. They took 2 of 3 against the Phillies this weekend. So they look like that they could take the what is the word that I'm looking for? Take the role of heartbreaker also. I mean, the Marlins, they're carrying 17 pitchers with 12 relievers, so, they have to cover innings early in the season. We know that the 30-man roster has to be cut down a little bit later, but, it looks like that they have more pitchers that they can roll with. They have a ton of relievers that are going to have to eat innings. So, we'll keep an eye on the Miami Marlins, obviously for multiple reasons, but, with that, there's really not more you can say about the Miami Marlins. Let's move on to the Texas Rangers, actually. So Corey Kluber left the game after only 18 pitches. According to the Rangers, Kluber said that he was feeling his shoulder tighten on him, and within his first few pitches. That's another thing. Like, these guys, they're just not stretched out, and it's really unfortunate that the MLB really rushed him back into the game, because a lot of these guys are dropping like flies, and with his first few pitches, and he was able to finish the inning, but the shoulder felt progressively tighter, and then the Rangers made the decision to take him out. He entered the season as the Rangers' number 3 starter behind Lance Lynn and Mike Minor. Lance Lynn having an incredible start on Friday. Mike Minor also had a pretty decent start on Saturday. The Rangers were clearly hoping that he would have more than that, and if he could stay healthy, and they were growing incredibly optimistic that that would happen until Sunday. Kluber, we know he sat out last season. He had a bunch of injuries, and he had Kluber had no physical issues since being acquired from Cleveland. He pitched 4 times in summer camp and threw at least 80 pitches in all 4 outings, including 87 in his most recent appearance on Monday. So, you're looking at people like, the pitchers like Corey Kluber, and, he's a huge part of that Rangers team. Now, the Rangers, some people have put them as, a wild card contender. Some people have put them, towards the bottom of the division, just slightly above the Seattle Mariners. He is a huge part of that. They don't really have the best lineup, so they're going to have to rely on their starting rotation to, eat a bunch of innings and put them in positions to where they can win games. And without Corey Kluber, it's not looking too bright over there in Arlington. Moving on to Reynaldo Lopez of the Chicago White Sox. He went down on Sunday in the first inning versus the Twins, giving up 4 runs on Jake Cave's grand slam. Another word on that grand slam, Eloy Jimenez ran into the wall, and he's questionable. He's day-to-day on an injury also because he took a hard spill into that wall. He was not looking for it at all. He did not feel the warning track, and he went full speed into the fence, and it knocked him pretty good. And so that's another thing to look out for the Chicago White Sox, because Eloy Jimenez is a huge part of the starting lineup, as is Reynaldo Lopez, as a third starter just behind Giolito and Dallas Keuchel. He's incredibly important to eat up a bunch of innings and put them in positions to win, because the Chicago White Sox don't have the best bullpen also. So he's a very key factor for them trying to take the division, or at least a wild card spot. Moving on from them, we have Ken Giles of the Toronto Blue Jays. He left Sunday's game against the Rays with a right elbow soreness, and he looked really uncomfortable throughout that 9th inning. It's alarming because he had the elbow issues last season, which often limited his ability to pitch on back-to-back days, and he was feeling tight, and it was the second of back-to-back outings for Ken Giles. So he could just be once, twice a week coming into the games, which is going to hinder the Blue Jays for to close out games, because Ken Giles, when he was with the Astros, was arguably one of the best closers. So you got to look out for him. That his health is huge for the Blue Jays if they want to do anything, and if he could bounce back, he could be on the open market as a trade piece for contenders to get a couple more prospects for the Blue Jays because they're kind of rebuilding, setting up for the future. That's something that we should definitely be keeping an eye on. Steven Strasburg, he was scratched as well due to a nerve issue in his right hand and is considered day-to-day. A nerve issue on the right hand, especially the throwing hand of Steven Strasburg, that is, that's not good. And, Steven Strasburg, we don't have to say anything about Steven Strasburg. We know how important he is to the success of the Washington Nationals. So, if when he comes back and when they get Juan Soto back, that's going to be big. They're going to be real contenders in that NL East, and they're going to be a really tough out. Moving on to the Minnesota Twins, Rich Hill threw a bullpen session on Saturday and said he felt great. Said a team spokesperson. Rich Hill had been announced that he is the starting pitcher for Saturday's game against the White Sox, but he was scratched after experiencing some soreness. Now, experiencing some soreness, is that a real big deal? So early in the season, with all these guys starting out, I don't blame Rocco Baldelli for not, throwing him out there. It's good that he took the day off, but it's weird because he said he threw a bullpen session in the morning and he felt great, but scratched his start because he felt sore. It's like, well, just don't throw the bullpen in the morning and feel some soreness. I don't know. I feel like that could have been pretty much avoided, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a real big deal for the Minnesota Twins. They did a real good job handling the Chicago White Sox, taking 2 out of 3, and Nelson Cruz pretty much beat the White Sox by himself. So, with a lineup that's just effortlessly just mashing the ball as much as the Minnesota Twins are, they allow themselves that time to, wait to get Rich Hill back on the mound. And, if they do experience some issues, with their starting rotation of the bullpen, I don't think it will affect them that much. And now, lastly, we go on to the biggest news. It was the first news. Well, maybe the first news. Maybe it was Juan Soto that was the first news of, players not playing on opening day. But it was Clayton Kershaw. He experienced back stiffness during a weight room workout on Tuesday. And on Friday, he believed he would not be able to be out long and threw in the outfield for the second straight day on Saturday. So he is able to come off the 10-day injured list next Friday. So we will see by the end of the week if Clayton Kershaw's back is going to be better, and we will add him to the Dodgers rotation. The Dodgers, they did play fairly well against the Giants. It is the Giants who aren't looking like they're the best team in the NL. But, missing Clayton Kershaw is still missing Clayton Kershaw. He was the best. He was hands down the best pitcher of the decade, of the last decade. So, adding him back and getting him into the swing of things, obviously, if the season still goes on, that is still apparently up in the air. But, adding him back to the Dodgers rotation, you can't put a price on that. Just him being who he is, granted with the postseason struggles and, everything that came along with that, it's not, he's still not someone to scoff at. He's still someone who could give you 6 and about, 7 to 8 Ks and about, 5 or less hits and, really give you a starting rotation, like a real solid piece in the starting rotation. I don't think he's a number 1 anymore, but still a solid, one of the best number 2s in the game. Just by name factor alone, he gets the intimidation factor. So, we'll see how Clayton Kershaw deals with his back stiffness this week, and hopefully he will be able to pitch by next weekend. That would be incredible. I have been waiting to watch Clayton Kershaw for a long time, and I really want to see him get back on the hill. All right, so that is the injury update for this weekend. I will be taking my final break, and I will be right back with the upcoming series of the week. All right, 1 second.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, everybody, thank you for staying all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. So, as we've broken down many times before, we are kind of on pins and needles waiting to hear the state of the MLB after the Miami Marlins. So, I'm kind of looking at this as the NBA did when they found out that Rudy Gobert tested positive. You know, it was really weird. He tested positive. They canceled the game. I think it was against Oklahoma City while there was a current game going on against the Mavericks. With the Mavericks, I should say. And, we're catching information left and right about the coronavirus. And we heard during the game that the season was postponed and, they weren't going to keep going. They were just going to finish the game, and that was probably one of the weirdest moments in sports history. So that's how I'm looking at the season. So I am still going to be breaking down the series that to keep an eye out for to start the week. At any moment we could hear that the season is postponed or canceled or anything like that. But until that happens, we still got baseball to play. First off, we have the White Sox versus the Indians. So the matchups for the week are going to be Cease versus Savale, Rodon versus Plesac, and the best pitching matchup, probably one of the better pitching matchups in the entire AL, is Giolito versus Shane Bieber. Now, for the White Sox, we know that, Eloy Jimenez could be out, and they need a major bounce back because, they dropped 2 against the Minnesota Twins, and not only did they drop 2, they got absolutely smashed on Sunday. So they're in desperate need of a bounce back, while the Indians, they could solidify themselves as a top 2 in the Central, which, is crucial for the postseason. There's probably going to be 2 coming out of the AL East. I mean, you could pretty much guarantee that there's going to be 2 coming out of the AL East, and the Yankees and the Rays. So it's basically going to be, a slugfest between the Indians and the Twins and the A's and the Astros, because, one of those 4 teams is going to be left out. So this is a big series at the start of the year. It's worth noting that, the Brilliants, Luis Robert had a crazy opening week. It was better than I expected, actually. I mean, his first hit was at like 116 miles per hour off the bat. It was absolutely insane. He put forth like an insane, like it was so exciting to watch. And he's 4th right now on the White Sox in slugging percentage. He's behind Eloy Jimenez, who could be out. He could play. We don't really know yet. Yoan Moncada and Lurie Garcia. The White Sox are an oncoming freight train. And, they just need to get the pitching. If their pitching could, settle down and figure themselves out, I think they'll bounce back pretty well, and, they might have a chance of handling the Indians. But, especially since they get to miss 2 of these 3 guys who pitched to start the opening weekend. They had their starting pitching put out an amazing performance this weekend. I mean, Carlos Carrasco, Shane Bieber, and Mike Clevenger threw a combined 18 innings, gave up only 4 runs and 13 hits on 2 walks, while striking out 30 batters. Like, that's really, really, really good for the Cleveland Indians. You know, the Indians, they don't really have the best offense, so if they can use their pitching to keep them in games, that's definitely going to be something that they need to do. They probably, you know, they had the most successful opening weekend pitching-wise. The team that I'm going to break down next had the most notable, but, you know, they weren't able to pull it out in the end. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for the White Sox and the Indians. I bet that's going to be a great series going forward. And moving on, we're on to the Chicago Cubs versus the Cincinnati Reds. So the pitching matchups are going to be John Lester versus Wade Miley. You have Mills versus Male, and probably I would rank this behind Giolito and Bieber just because they're like the younger faces in the league. But Hendricks versus Gray, both of them had an incredible opening week or an opening day start, and you know, it's going to see if they can. You know, it's going to be fun to see if they can keep it moving. You know, the Reds pitching was amazing this weekend. Their bullpen had a 1.4 ERA, and the 2 losses that they got to the Detroit Tigers were strictly on the bullpen. Trevor Bauer said that it's really annoying that he, you know, and he's really competitive. So, you know, losing games when he, you know, puts together a great start is definitely something that annoys him. And, you know, he's never been one to shy away from the camera and voicing his opinions. You know, the relievers surrendered 7 runs and 4 homers in 2 days. And, you know, Michael Lorenzen giving up 2 of the homers against Cincinnati, or against Detroit. You know, since he has never started a season ever with pitchers recording 10 or more strikeouts in the first 3 games. Well, and, you know, it happened with, you know, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, and Trevor Bauer. You know, Cincinnati pitchers, they recorded 17 Ks in Detroit, you know, in a 6-4 loss. They lost the game, and they recorded 17 strikeouts. And, you know, Luis Castillo, he provided 11 Ks for Luis Castillo in a 6-4 loss. Like, that's amazing. Friday's 7-1 opening day win, you know, it was a 13K day by the staff, you know, 9 from Sonny Gray. You know, and Trevor Bauer, you know, he had a great day on Sunday, handed it to the bullpen, and, you know, ultimately got the loss. But, you know, their starting pitching looks incredible. We'll see how, you know, they handle the rest of the week. So keep your eyes peeled out for them. The Cubs, what was notable about the Cubs was Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, and Jason Hayward. Not really surprising with Jason Hayward. I don't know why people think he's a great, consistent bat. He really hasn't done anything since his rookie year in Atlanta, but people still consider him to be a threat at the plate for some weird reason. But they combined for 6 for 45 this weekend. You know, that's definitely not what you want at all, but you know, it's just kind of what they got out of their stars. But, you know, they still took 2 out of 3 against the Brewers anyways. You know, with their pitching, they threw so well that even with the struggles from their best guys, they were still able to pull it away. You know, with the Cubs starting out slow and the hot pitching from the Reds, from their starting rotation, that is, you know, it's that's definitely going to be a recipe that you're going to want to, you know, tune into. Or at least I want to tune into. I'm going to be watching the heck out of these games. We'll see if it's going to be a battle of the bullpen, I believe. You know, both offenses are very talented, but start coming out to a slow start. I feel that, you know, it's going to be a bullpen game. Expect at least 2 of these games to go to extra innings and see that, you know, the extra innings rule, you know, really come into effect in this series. Moving on, we have, well, what should have been the Phillies versus the Yankees, but the game got suspended tonight. When you were listening to this pod that comes out tomorrow on Tuesday, we will see how they bounce back with that. But, you know, this, for the Phillies, you know, they got to win this series to be taken seriously as an NL playoff picture. You know, they dropped 2 of 3 against the Miami Marlins. You know, The Braves, they kind of turned it around. They took 2 of 3 from the Mets, who seemed like before the season started were going to be a legit contender. The Washington Nationals came out and put up a heck of a fight against the New York Yankees. So the Phillies really have to come out and, put out some, really assert themselves if this series ever does happen, to actually be ready to do something in the division. We'll see. Well, obviously, we'll see how this goes. Stanton started off the season great. He hit 2 monster home runs over the weekend, and he his first homer, the first homer of the season, was had an exit velocity of 121.7 miles per hour, 121.7 off the bat, and it's his hardest hit homer since 2018. So that's something that that is something to keep an eye on. If Giancarlo Stanton can stay healthy and so can Aaron Judge, that's the Yankees. Everybody's talked about how their schedule is going to be murderer's row, but if they can stay healthy and get through it, I feel like they're going to have no troubles running through it. Hopefully everybody stayed safe and healthy, but we'll see in the upcoming days. Moving on. We have the Braves versus the Rays, and, whoever wins this series is probably most likely will be number 1 in their respective division. So it puts, a ton of pressure on these teams. The day 1, on Monday, you got Fulte versus Glasnow. You got Kyle Wright versus Chirinos. And then, to close out the series, you got the 2 aces, Mike Soroka versus Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, he struggled in the first game. Maybe he will bounce back. The Braves, they have to show that they can handle an ace. They kind of beat up on some lower named guys for the New York Mets because, Marcus Stroman went down, and they had no shot at all against Jacob deGrom. But, they got to show that they can assert themselves. Ronald Acuna really needs to bounce back. So we'll see how they do it. We'll see if Austin Riley can actually keep this going. Austin Riley had a hot weekend. Ozzie Albies looked great. Marcelo Zuna, my goodness, I stated before that he looks like he's worth every single penny. Freddie Freeman was hitting the ball well. It was a field day on Sunday night. And then G-Man Choi for the Tampa Bay Rays. He hit. He's a left-handed batter, and he batted right-handed and hit it 109 miles an hour. That's harder than any of his 36 homers batting left-handed. He just switched to the other side of the plate and just crushed a dinger harder than he had ever crushed a dinger from the other side of the plate. It was really weird. I had no idea what he was doing, but it looks like he put in enough work to actually be a competent two-way switch hitter. So we'll see if he can keep it going, and we'll see how the Tampa Bay Rays handle the Braves rotation. I really need to see if Fulton Ewich can, not hang a slider. That's something that he hasn't been able to do in the past. So hopefully Fulton Ewich, you can keep a slider below the belt. That would be so sweet. So sweet. Moving on. We have the Red Sox versus the Mets. Both teams got absolutely shellacked this weekend. Whoever loses the series could be looking at missing the playoffs altogether. I think, if with the season being so short and completely up in the air, if there even will be a season, it's necessary that they win this series. Whoever loses the series, I think, is done. There's too many contenders in both divisions. Somebody needs to come out and assert themselves. And, they cannot afford to lose this series at all. So we have Michael Wacha versus Osich, who I have never heard of in my entire life. So I'll definitely be tuning in just to see what this pitcher has. I like to see what the new guys come into the game. There's no name has been announced for Tuesday's matchup for the New York Mets. They have yet to call somebody up to replace Marcus Stroman on the hill, and they're going to be facing a lefty Hall for the Red Sox, who I've also never heard of. So I'll be tuning into that game as well. I don't necessarily really like the Red Sox, and I'm not really a Mets fan, being that I'm a Braves fan. But baseball's baseball. I like to see the new guys, and who knows, they could pull out a diamond in the rough. And then to close out the series, you have Nathan Eovaldi versus Jacob deGrom. That's going to be a big matchup. I don't expect the Red Sox to win that one. I think deGrom's going to come out and have a field day on that lineup, but we'll see. We'll see how the first two games go. Like I said, they cannot lose. Either team can't lose the series. They can't afford to, at least. Next up, this is probably going to be the most watched series to start the week, and it is the Dodgers versus the Astros. I mean, dude, do I really need to explain? Like, the Dodgers are going to come out like a bat out of heck and just go so hard at the Houston Astros. You're going to want to watch every second of it. The Dodgers have a bitter taste in their mouths. They hate the Astros like every other team in the league. Well, every other contender in the league, I guess. And, they're going to come out and they're going to try and bury these guys. Absolutely bury them. And, with Verlander being out and, the rest of their rotation in question, I feel like the Dodgers are going to have an absolute field day on these guys. It's just who is going to be at the back end of the Dodgers starting rotation. Are they going to be able to shut down Houston? You have the bottom tier of their rotation and the bottom tier of Houston's rotation. I feel like this is going to be a major slugfest, kind of like the Twins and the White Sox were over the weekend. It's going to be a lot of homers. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of high exit velos. It's going to be something that you're going to want to keep your eye on. And to close out the show, I am going to end this with the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Minnesota Twins. Now we have Carlos Martinez versus Homer Bailey, and Rich Hill versus Mitch Mikolas. I don't know his first name. But, the Minnesota Twins came out and had a field day on offense. I mean, Nelson Cruz is the only player in the league with 3 homers and had 7 RBIs by himself on Sunday. Jake Cave is slugging to start off the year, and Max Kepler looks like he hasn't missed a step since the end of last season. The Twins' offense is absolutely potent, but my question is, can the rotation hold off the Cards? And, not only can their rotation, but, can their bullpen last? Their bullpen's going to come into question. They had a fairly good day against the White Sox, but we'll see if they can keep it going. And then for the Cardinals, Yadi Molina looks amazing. He came out, he shed so many pounds in the offseason. He looks just absolutely shredded. Excuse me again. He picked off a guy at first base and threw out a potential base stealer in consecutive innings on Sunday. Like, he just looks ready to play, ready to take the league on. And when Yadier Molina is at his best, you cannot ever sleep on the St. Louis Cardinals. If Yadi is playing great, the team is playing great. He is the best catcher in baseball. He is the smartest catcher in baseball. And like I said, you can never count out the St. Louis Cardinals, even when Yadi's not at his best. When Yadi's not at his best, the Cardinals are at least a wild card team, to say the least. And, when he's at the top of his game, playing and, calling pitches to the best of his ability and just, shooting base runners down left and right, not many teams have a chance against the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's definitely something you're going to want to watch. And, all right, everybody, that is our show. I will be back Friday with a new episode. Enjoy your week, enjoy your families, and enjoy baseball while you have it. I can't emphasize that enough. Enjoy baseball while you have it. It could be taken away at any moment, at any moment. So you can follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. You can play me in Tap Baseball. My nickname is EvanWorley23. And lastly, I would like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you all to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. It really helps us out. And also, if you can give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. Have a great night. I will see y'all at the end of the week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.